Hey, everybody, and
Hi,
welcome back to Things We Don't Talk About. We are your hosts. My name is Mark Lemazny,
I'm Stephanie Webb.
and we are super excited to come back to you today and give you another super informative episode. Today, what we're going to be focusing on is living in a divided America. What does that division actually do to the average person? So, some of the main headlines we're constantly seeing: red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat, conservatives versus progressive. But what does this all really mean? Like, there's numbers, there's polls, there's all this stuff going on, right? But at the end of the day, I think that a lot of people really just care about kind of the basic stuff. And what is that basic stuff? Going to work, raising their families, trying to have a little fun, trying to have a little peace of mind, maybe exercise their rights, things of this nature. But the more and more divides that we just keep seeing, it's getting harder and harder to do this. So, what we're going to really focus on today is what does that do to the average person? So, kind of kicking off is the major trust issues that come along with the division. So,
Congress actually has some of the lowest approval ratings in history. Courts are seen as political, such as uh, not judicial courts, like it should be, but executive courts, which would be the more political side of courts. Like I feel almost every single, besides district courts, they're going to be executive courts. So that's that's not the same as judicial courts.
no, absolutely, and within that too is the Supreme Court decisions as well. So, President Trump had an opportunity to appoint someone to the Supreme Court. I believe President Biden hasn't had an opportunity to appoint one to the Supreme Court. I think that was Ketanji Brown Jackson. And we're constantly hearing from people, from the media, from everybody out there. Well, this is a more left-leaning judge, or this is a more right-leaning judge, or this person is more progressive, or this person is more liberal. And I think that we're constantly hearing this over and over again, especially about people like Supreme Court justices. I mean, these people are supposed to interpret the law for us. They're supposed to. I thought they were supposed to take their bias out of the equation, and I didn't know that you were supposed to be a conservative judge, or like I didn't know that you were supposed to be a progressive judge. Like I thought there was supposed to be some disdain in the branches of government, as opposed to where we just simply have this. Okay, well, yeah, no, it's a big deal that Ketanji Brown Jackson is the justice because I remember I think she was the first Black female Supreme Court justice. I believe that was the big thing with Ketanji Brown Jackson. And then the guy before was Brett Kavanaugh. And if you haven't seen it, I got to say, go watch the SNL skit from years ago about Brett Kavanaugh where Matt Damon portrays him. It is absolutely hilarious. You guys should watch it.
Mark, I don't think I have seen that SNL skit, so I'll have to watch it.
It is. It is.
Really?
It is really, really funny. It's just anyway. But
Super cool.
one thing that I was listening to the other day on the news. I don't actually watch the news that often, but when I was listening on the news, is they were talking about the fact that Congress recently just hasn't been holding their votes. So today is September 19th, 2025, and I want to share this with you guys real quick. Just did a quick Google search. So there have been multiple reports from the United States representatives canceling or postponing votes for 2025. These incidents are not unprecedented, but a series of cancellations over the summer were noted by congressional observers. So where I'm really confused with here is then what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on? I mean, it's not a right versus left thing, or what's going to happen. But I thought that the point of the government was to do your job and go to work and hold your votes and write up legislation.
Yeah, but like on the same point, you hear aides saying that they are, they're being instructed to vote for their senator or their
Yeah,
congresswoman
I have heard that.
because they're just too drunk or inebriated to make it there to vote. Like that is your job. That is your sole job. Like
I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And then with the transparency aspect of that stuff too, so we're really trying to focus on trust. There is a website where you can actually trade alongside of the Congress people. When I mean trade, we trade stocks and bonds and stuff like that. So you can actually just sit back and trade as the same way as our congressional our members of Congress. And I find this concept to be just so wild that we're just okay with it. Like, yeah, man. If you haven't seen the movie War Dogs, what's very interesting about it is the weapons contracts. So when we completely erroneously invaded Iraq during Bush's presidency, and we used WMDs as an excuse, but it was really just for oil and stuff like that. These guys got caught selling government contracts to the highest bidder to companies like big Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies, and that is where no bid contracts come from. So like this is recent. That was like 2000, 1998, something like that. So like we've been seeing so many issues over the years of our government overstepping.
and just none of it fosters the trust. Um, which is one of the biggest problems of being divided in America. Yeah, so the next one I would say would be stress and exhaustion. So there's a poll that says 86% of Americans feel exhausted by political division. Who is so tired of talking about?
I'm gonna raise my hand here on this one. I'm tired.
Yeah. It's the anxiety, it's the family gatherings, people walk on eggshells at work or at church pews, neighborhood barbecues. I mean, in everyday life, blue versus red is real.
And it's impacted, like it says, impacts us in every aspect. And one of the things that I find interesting is that sometimes I just genuinely have a question about perspective. So I want to go to someone who might have a different mindset or a different viewpoint than I do, because I am genuinely curious at like how their mind works. Like when somebody says to me, I am a Democrat, I am not a Democrat. So I'd like to know what that means. And I have some follow-up questions for people. And not to be argumentative, not to get in their face and not to have, a problem with their viewpoints. I'm just genuinely curious, like where they feel on topics. And depending on those answers, I might also want to include examples where someone who, say, is a Democrat and an elected Democrat has done something similar to what they're describing. And I'm still not trying to incite anything. I'm just trying to understand how people draw to their conclusions.
Right. Like, what does progressive mean to you? What does being a liberal mean to you? Because I just found out and read that it's not the same. Being a liberal and being a progressive, there's even a division in that. Right. So are you liberal or are you progressive? And then somewhere in the middle, it's called being a Democrat. I mean, it's like, so even that is being like, okay, well,
and it's totally fine. Progressive. And if a label isn't quite fitting of everything too, because a lot of times with labels comes like these little boxes that we can put everybody in, and this is what our definition of these things mean. So when you're sitting down at a family gathering, it's like, I remember when I was a kid, 36 years old. So when I was a kid, I had a lot of people who were Democrats in the family, and we would get together for Thanksgiving, and there were some pretty good conversations that went on, and a lot of times it's like when other people were bringing in their difference of opinion, hey, they're able to hold their own. But I also sit back and I go, well, what does that really mean to hold your own in a political conversation? Like what does that actually mean to you to just hold your own? Because I can say now that I don't want to cause that stress to people. I don't want to be that source of stress where it's coming out and really questioning someone's beliefs. But at the same time, I want to be able to have a conversation with people about who they are and what's important to them.
Yes. What does it mean to what kind of progression do you want to
Yes.
see in America? And everybody has their own definition of progression or progressive. And I think that this is actually the the building blocks in which we are actually divided because progressives might want it to be more progressive, like to think I want America to be so much farther ahead. It's 2025.
Exactly.
Where should we be with technology? Where should we be
With
in society?
policy,
Yeah, and policies, and it's just
social norms.
schools. What are we teaching people? It's just everything is something that everybody has an opinion on. So
Yes.
it's like, how progressive is too progressive? What does being progressive mean to you? Or what does a progressive America even mean to people?
Yeah. And I could definitely see how that's going to add a lot of stress, right? Like I'm sitting here thinking about that question myself in the moment, and I'm already getting a little bit more stressed out about it because I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know what progress is with that. Because when I think about it too, like what really matters to me is it's like, I think I really missed when you could lay somebody out in the NFL. Like, man, I miss Ray Lewis knocking some people out on the field. Like, and I can tell you that if you ask some even older school people when it comes to how sports used to be, like Deacon Jones, man, he used to play for the Rams, and this guy would just lay them out. He would stick his arm out and just club people in the neck, and they go flying around, all that stuff. And like, man, he literally would like tape up his arm so he could like really come by and hit you. And I'm like, man, we don't see that in the NFL anymore. Maybe is that progress then? Are we making progress because we don't see people like Deacon Jones anymore?
Everything's become so PC.
Yeah,
Or,
that's another good
a
point.
little bit soft, and gentle parenting is pretty much ruining the world, in my opinion. Um,
Yeah.
and, even dating apps now have a filter that matches political affiliation.
Yep.
Um, some cases, parents and children go months or years without speaking. Um, so again, like this is everyday stuff. I know personally that we had a neighbor. She voted for Donald Trump. Her best friend of over 10 years voted for the Democrat Party, and she said, "Hey, I don't want to be friends with you anymore because you voted for Trump." Over 10
Right.
years, you're just going to throw away a friendship. I feel there's statistics that after 10 years of knowing somebody, you're always going to know them. So to
Yeah.
say, hey, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because you vote this way, that's actually really devastating and sad that as a divided America, that's really what we do to our friends and family.
No, 100%. And like it's totally fine to have a difference of opinion on things. But it's the extreme aspect that Steph's really talking about there. Because people are going to change. Yeah, I think we all get a little older. We all start thinking like, hey, man, what I was able to do in my 20s, I can't do in my 30s. But got learning to drive. Heck, there's some of you who have been, traveling a lot longer than we have, and it's about change, right? So just because a president changes, or just because maybe some ideology changes, is that really worth throwing away all of those memories? And obviously, in that instance, that person felt so, but that really shows like how much things have changed. Because I remember growing up, it was like we worked it out, and sometimes it took a while to work it out. And then after that, it was like sometimes you had to take a couple of cracks at working it out.
And sometimes it just had to get ugly before it could be cute.
Yeah,
Not everything can be pretty and with a little bow, and
my
everyone.
feelings are perfect,
And
and
I acknowledge your feelings and all of our feelings,
Mhm.
and we can just hold each other's hand and get through it. that's not actually real life.
Yeah, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense.
And that's what also divides us too, when people are okay with the raw dirtiness of getting down to the nitty gritty, and then some people who are like, oh no, we don't say such things out loud, or um, no, we don't talk about that. We swept that underneath the rug, and that's family business we don't talk about,
right.
Um, all of this is going to come down to people's individual biases, which ultimately sway their opinions on life itself. So um, I think that's where it starts with the division. Um, but another big one of division would be the local divide. So I'm talking more about like urban versus rural. Two different worlds. We all know this. Different economies, different experiences, and even different media levels. Um, we're talking about school boards, city councils, and neighborhood debates. So for the average American, it can feel like community is slipping a little bit because sometimes you feel like a neighbor is not necessarily like your like neighborly anymore because of political views. Mark and I recently did um, some time in a neighborhood where we lived there, and all of our neighbors were Democrats, and they most of them just said, "Oh yeah, well I'm a Democrat because my mom and dad were a Democrat,
Yeah, heard that a lot.
so then I just go Democrat."
Right. It's like, okay, so this is kind of like the it's like Lions fans, man. It's like Jets fans, stuff like that. It's like, oh, nobody chooses to be a Jets fan. You're a Jets fan because your dad's a Jets fan. Like, I'm just saying, it's so much to go along with that. So when I think about community, I go like, when I grew up, I knew my neighbors for the most part. There was just a couple of houses where they didn't have kids, or they just weren't really outside or stuff like that. So to kind of go along with this, it's like as we start making the changes, trying to be more technology first, trying to be more, I feel like we're trying to be more of an instant gratification type of society that comes with some repercussions. Where it's like, oh, well, we can't all sit down to dinner and have a conversation for 2 hours. It becomes, well, guess what? Because these kids have to watch their shows or they want to be on their tablets. People don't want to be outside. People don't want to go to church. On a quick subject change, I was talking with a coworker of mine about how, like the division of church and state. And one of the things that we were talking about with the division of church and state is that he felt that Christians were very judgmental. And I just remember thinking, and it was the way he said it, and I was like, so what he's specifically saying is it was like back in my day, we called it you could pray the gay away. That's what he meant. So my point of this, and my point of his, and within this conversation, I was like, dude, I get it, I get what you mean. But then also when we took religion out of people's lives, we left this big, huge spiritual gap that only spirit can fill. So it's like, how do we start bringing this division back together?
But I also don't think that you can mix up religion with spirituality.
That's a good point.
Religion was made by man, and spirituality is the purest form. Um, so you can't get those mixed up. But I like what you're saying, and uh, I feel like how do you learn morals, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does a society filled with morals look like? Because once we took Christianity really like out of America, out of mainstream, like we stopped talking about Jesus, we stopped talking about God. Now look at our society. Our society has almost no morals, like
Correct.
stabbings, killings, people stealing from stores all the time. There's OnlyFans, there's dating apps, the hookup society, all of that. So I'm going to say that that's not very moral. Like, you know, being a part of the hookup society, there's no morals in that. There's no values. So it's just like,
Are we trying to create a society with existing and sustainable relationships? Are we trying to actually push society into stuff like single motherhood, single fatherhood? Or are we looking to have good, solid communities where there are husbands and wives, where there are kids, where there are grandparents, where we sit down and share stories? I mean, yes, we should compete. Yes, we should have an understanding of like what all of this. But to Steph's point, it's like we do have to decide on those morals. And beliefs can kind of lead along to those things. But if we're going to sit back and we're say, hey, so we want a more progressive society, then I think we also have to take a look at what that can mean. I think it means more instant gratification.
I just don't understand how the two things became so political and how we can't even govern ourselves on our morals.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy that, being a part of the hookup culture is progressive. It's not progressive. It's not. It's actually pretty gross. Let's just show everybody our downstairs. Our no where. No. Like, to me, that's really gross. I've never been on a Tinder date or any of that, and that's okay with me. Gotta practice and preach your morals, your values, so that way other people can kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, I like that. I'm gonna adopt that for myself. I was at the gym the other day, and it was so heartwarming because there was two ladies, one I knew, one I didn't, but they were sitting on the bench talking about God. They were talking about God in their life. They were talking about God with their children. They were talking about, yeah, I love all people, but I love my son, my daughter, God, my husband in a little bit different way. And it was so refreshing to hear people talking about God, morals, values, their family, instead of such other nonsense that you hear people talking about all day long. So, um, you know, the the hope isn't lost. We just need to find what actually like centers, like what is center again.
So what we keep seeing as the price of all of this division is it ultimately leads to gridlock. And one of the main problems there is you're going to see gridlock if something happens. It doesn't matter if you have majorities. It doesn't matter if you the person that you wanted got elected. Like none of that stuff is relevant when you have a society that just gridlocks itself because nothing is actually happening. So we have to really look at this. Those people are starting to feel powerless. They're just watching more and more problems pile up, and the leaders are just fighting. They're not even making an effort to actually solve a problem. So again, today is September 19th, 2025, and I just watched interviews from Kash Patel, who is the current sitting director of the FBI, discuss policy in front of the Senate, and multiple times in the course of his, I want to call it an interrogation, I don't know what else to call it, it's just senators and Congress people just literally talking over him and just talking over and talking over and talking and just never ending talking over. And it's like, man, this is that leadership? Is that actually appropriate for an elected official to not even allow someone to respond and to speak so ill of people? Just whether it's to their face or not is irrelevant. Like I also understand calling out moral behavior or behavior that you feel is inappropriate, but that's not what this is. This is simply people discussing, like not even discussing anything. It's just two powerful people just zipping back and forth, and it's like this is politics. This is what we've reduced ourselves down to. This is what we're all we're ruining lives, we're ruining relationships, we're seeing 10-year friendships down the drain, we're seeing marriages end, we're seeing divorce rates skyrocket across the board, and we're doing this for these people to sit there and just bicker and accomplish nothing.
But if foreign affairs needs something, if another country needs something, America is right there.
Don't you worry, we got it.
Solve your problem. Don't worry. And I think that is also something that Americans are real tired of, is paying the bill for other countries while our country is literally sometimes a
we have a ton of great things here in America, like we really do. But at the end of the day, it's like if we still have the number of issues that we have, there is no reason for America to be as involved in the rest of the world as we are.
I think there's a lot of like lipstick on a pig in America, though.
Yeah,
like I really do. Our water is privatized, and there's so many chemicals, and like you can't even drink it straight out of the faucet. You know, there's a lot of reform that could be happening within the education system that just is not happening. We just decide that, you know, everyone just throw everybody in jail. There's a lot of reform that could be happening.
The Food and Drug Administration.
Seriously, there's just so many issues that have lipstick on them, but you can still see that they are a pig. They clearly are. Yeah, it's just crazy. If we're the wealthiest country, if we're just like, a powerhouse that we're supposed to be, then why aren't our systems better? And it's because we can't decide on anything because we have different ideas of how everything should be run.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which puts it back into the gridlock of just this all day long.
To go along with that too, that really brings along a lot of fear, and the fear of violence, the fear of continued political escalations. And I know we saw some stuff recently. So there was the George Floyd riots in 2020. There was the January 6th incident that happened, at the U.S. Capitol, where people broke into the Capitol and destroyed the U.S. Capitol. And it was 2020 or 2021. That was pretty recent that happened.
And insurgents.
Don't worry, insurrection. Yeah. Okay.
Insurrection.
Yeah. Oh, we're not going into that one. We're not. That's a whole nother division right there. We're not trying to add to the division on this episode, but it's pretty funny. It's insurrection. My God. And I think it's like with so many people really believing that this is going to come back again and escalate, and I am one of those people. I regularly think that we are on our way to the next civil war. I don't want that to happen. I'm not asking for that to happen. I sincerely hope it does not happen. But I believe we are on our way to it. The things that we're seeing.
The political environment is just adding up to the point where I feel like it's just gonna pop.
For me, so this is me, and this is my 2 cents on this one. When I see police officers and federal agents and government officials just abuse their power in the way that they are, and there is no accountability whatsoever for it, to me, it's that. It is eventually people are going to say, I am at war with those who have sworn an oath to protect me. And
there's a lot of people who, feel like they're in danger, but they also feel like if they call the cops, that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah.
They're not going to feel safer from calling the cops. And that's really frustrating because who do you call when you need need that kind of help? And you don't want to call the cops. It's like that's why they're supposed to be around.
Right.
So that way you can call them and have trust in them to come help you.
Exactly. The amount of fear that people fear about everything. I can honestly say that I don't trust law enforcement in any way, shape, or form. And this is just continuously reinforced by all of the different interactions that are shown out there.
I mean, I would be swayed otherwise, except I know that they make prisoner, like their inmate numbers, trust. Into trust. It even says it on your paperwork, Hey, reclassify me. This is my number. Yeah, that's you. That's your trust number. That's what you're talking about. And it is traded on the NASDAQ. So these prisoners are making people a lot of money.
And we have for-profit prisons in the United States of America. If you put a business where you must create revenue streams, that is the purpose of a business, is to make money, period. If you privatize prisons, you thus incentivize to fill them by any means necessary. Don't you think that it's going to be rights violations? Do you think that's going to be kidnappings? I mean, that's what it is. When a police officer arrests you without due process, without a warrant, without probable cause, it's kidnapping. And this is happening a lot, and it happens all over the place. Oh, you just spent the weekend in jail. What's the big deal? Come on, man. It's got to be more than that. It's just ridiculous.
Right to a speedy and fair trial.
Right. If I'm really supposed to face my accuser, then bring my accuser along with me. Come on, let's go. If I'm being arrested, why am I not going right before a magistrate to go ahead and solve this? Like, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But that's not what's happening. So, to kind of wrap this one up here and to look at, what does all this mean for the average person? So what does this division do to the average person? That's the question we asked ourselves at the beginning of this. So it definitely steals trust. It adds tremendous stress to people's lives. Gridlocks ourselves, gridlocks societies, governments, fragments our communities. I think this is the most important thing, though, is division is destiny. We absolutely are at the forefront of every day and making the decisions. And
every single one of us.
Yeah.
Yep.
What can we actually compromise on, and how long do we need to actually sit down and figure this out so we can come to some type of equitable solution as a society? We do not need to beat this anymore in America. We can do so much better.
Man, think of the things that we could do if we just banded together.
It's limitless.
Put all of our differences aside and just say, hey, you're a human, I'm a human, you want to live a certain way, I want to live a certain way. Let's do that together, and let's just be a better society and learn from each other, because I feel like we've just cut off learning from each other. We can't learn about our cultures, we can't learn about our interests or our talents, because it's like, you're red, I'm blue, we can't talk.
So one little quick story before we let you guys go. I thought that this was really funny in the moment. So a couple years ago, I had a gentleman that was working for me, and he used to be a police officer. And he told me this story. He goes, if 5 rednecks and 5 brothers from the hood got together, they could take over the world. The amount of resourcefulness that rednecks and brothers have, if those 10 people could get together, guys, we could solve every single problem out there. We just need those volunteers.
So true, though.
And I thought that was really good advice, and I was like, it came from him, and I wanted to share that with y'all. So, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Hey, what do you guys think is progress? What do you add some comments in here?
Here's a great poll. How many of you trust the government?
Great question.
How many of you trust the government to make the right decisions for you? Anyway, comment down below. Let us know. Follow, share. I'm Stephanie Webb.
I'm Mark Lemazny. This is Things We Don't Talk About. Have a good one, guys. See you next time.